So many injuries, so many replacements, so many interesting waiver moves to make. Let's break all 11 games down from Wednesday with Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm going to be up in the Gold Coast in a few weeks. Nothing particular going on. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Don't forget, your favorite team has a newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe to your favorite team's newsletter. Get all of the information from around the world about your favorite team. We are here, thumbing it up, double banging. Of course, that's what we do. And this is going to be a pretty busy show, I think. Lots of stuff going on across the NBA. Of course it is. There was 11 games on. It's a busy day. Let's dig in. Let's talk about what we need to go through. Won't do a waiver wire trend show because we did that earlier today. But just some big injury news that you may not have caught up on. Scottie Barnes does indeed have an orbital fracture. He's going to be out for at least 3 weeks. We'll talk about the replacements when we get to the Raptors game. Both CJ McCollum and Herb Jones are out. Herb with a shoulder and CJ with an adductor issue. That's not good. I said yes, I was a little worried about her, but I didn't know anything about the CJ one. So we'll talk about that again when we get to the Pelicans game later on today, but I would expect it's not just a single game thing. And then Lonzo Ball, not with a knee, he's out with a wrist issue now for at least 10 days with the Chicago Bulls, again meaning you do not roster. Unfortunately, as good as he is, as much as we love him, you don't roster Lonzo Ball. Quick little start to things because we just got a lot to do. Let's talk about the first game. It was the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics in this one. Good to have some better performances from some of your Indiana Pacers. And we talked about this yesterday, yesterday, in the preview show, saying we've got to watch the status of Miles Turner because sort of out of nowhere, he came with an ankle problem. But, we didn't know how serious it was going to be. We didn't know that it was significant. And there you go. But what we do know is that the Celtics came in with an unchanged lineup. In the end, the Pacers win at 135-132 was your final score here in this one. At least we got to see the Celtics challenged in this game, so it goes to overtime, so we get bigger minutes for their players. Tatum plays 43 and goes 37, 8, and 4. It was a rough start in terms of some shooting. The free throws recovered, the field goals didn't. He added 4 steals as well. Another really strong performance from Tatum overall. Derek White was awesome, 23 points, 37 minutes, and Jaylen Brown had 25, 6, and 5 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. These guys are doing a mountain of work. I tell you who isn't, though, Jrue Holiday. 25 minutes, 8 points, 4 assists. Now, I was a little worried about targeting Jrue Holiday this year. In fact, I didn't. I didn't draft him anywhere. I was worried about the long playoff run. I was worried about the Olympics. I was worried about tiredness, and they seem to be in the very early stages, or they're right bang in the middle of load managing him. He just didn't play down the stretch in this game. That is, he's had one good game. He is barely a top 150 player. He's not a top 150 player in points leagues. In fact, I'm going to make a call. In a 10-team points league, get that garbage out of here. In a 12, it is close as well. And in a category league, it really depends on who you're adding. But what we are seeing so far is not encouraging. They are being very cautious with what Jrue does. They won't need him to go full speed most of the time. And honestly, at this point, Peyton Pritchard is better than him, or playing better than him. I won't say he's better than him. He is playing better than Jrue Holiday. So we might need to consider a drop. What we do with Peyton, though, is we add that. Like 39 minutes of Peyton Pritchard, a key part of the lineup, 16, 4, and 4 with 4 threes. He's been ridiculously good. And I was worried about, how do the minutes hold? What happens when Hauser comes back? Well, they just don't play Jrue Holiday, I guess. And Hauser's minutes were down, and Jrue won't play this few minutes every game. But Pritchard is doing a million things. And yeah, I think that means it's got to be a rosterable situation. Their next game, the Celtics, is a back-to-back. I wouldn't be shocked if Jrue sits one and Horford sits one. The guy that stepped up today off the bench was Neemias Queta. So the big Pastel de Nata had 9 rebounds and a block in 14 minutes. There's still Cornet, there's still Tillman. We'll see how they stream those guys through, but Cater's the best permanent producer, so maybe we take a look at him in that spot. It will be an interesting one to take a look at. The Pacers side of things, there was a change in the lineup because, like I said, Miles Turner was out, so Isaiah Jackson started. He only played 25 minutes in this one, Isaiah. He was still, good. There was nothing wrong with what he did, but as per scripture, he fouled out. 10-5 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. But the last 2 games from Jackson have been unbelievably good. So as long as Turner is out, we use Jackson. And with him out, fouling out, and it being overtime, Obi Toppin. 18-7, steal, block, 2 threes, 33 minutes. So he's worth a stream in a situation where Turner is out. Siakam was fine, 29, 11, and 6, actually hit 6 triples, and Halliburton's still not fully back. He only shot 37%, but 17, 6, and 13, 2 steals, 40 minutes, getting there. Not there yet, getting there. Now, I know what we do the next part, because Andrew Nembhard played 5 minutes and then came out and never returned. And we heard a report from a Pacers guy saying there's no injury, it's just a coaching decision. We're like, well, that's very weird. And then after the game, Rick Carlisle says, no, it's actually knee tendonitis. So Nembhard had 2 points. He had already been, to me, a borderline player that has never shown an ability in the regular season to succeed next to Tyrese Halliburton. And that might sound harsh, but it's literally true. And I think a lot of people were fluffing him based on some of the stuff in the playoffs. I'm dropping.
Get that garbage out of here.
As for what do you do with Mathurin? This is where, how do you view samples? Because Ben Mathurin had 43 minutes, he had 30 and 11. He shot 53% on 17 attempts and went 10 of 11 from the line, which is all amazing. But if you just strain your memory, if you just go back in time to as far back as the second half of the previous game, he got taken out of the rotation and had 5 points in 13 minutes for the totality of the game. All right, so this is great. That's terrible. Which one of them is real? In fact, the reality is that he is bad and he is terrible. He is the duality of man combined in a Canadian body. Undoubtedly an amazing game. There's no way you watch the last game where you know what's going to happen? Mathurin's going to drop 30 and 11 in 42 minutes after he got benched. I wouldn't distill it down. I'm not adding Ben Mathurin based on this. I don't have any faith or confidence, which is the same thing, in him doing it consistently. Aaron Nesmith was solid enough, 12, 8, and 3. That's 14 team-ish. That's 12 team streaming, but it's definitely not a must roster player. I will stand. I'll stand pretty firm on that idea that he is not a must roster guy. But if you don't agree, that is totally okay as well. The second game, it's the Toronto Raptors, the Charlotte Hornets, an absolutely huge scoring game. 138, 133. The Raptors were without Barnes, so they did the thing. They didn't start Ochai Agbaji. They didn't start Chris Boucher. They started Jonathan Mobo. And Barnes is out for 3+ now. It's still very hard to judge because Olynyk didn't play, Bruce Brown didn't play, and Emmanuel Quickley didn't play. But Mobo played 25 minutes. He had 11 and 4, 1 steal, 2 blocks. That's addable. I told you that I added him in the deep Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl leagues to stash for later on in the season. So I already had him. I think we go and grab him now. But Olynyk, Quickley, could easily drop him back. More so with Olynyk. Pirtle played 26 minutes a night last season, and now Darko Rajakovic has gone, let's do it, 35. He had 20 and 16 with 2 steals. He is cooking at the moment, while Rowan Barrett, 31, 4 and 8, 2 steals on 56%. Unfortunately, he pissed on your free throws, but I've got an embarrassing amount of RJ Barrett on my team because, as everybody knows, he's probably my second favorite player and plays for my favorite team in my favorite country. So I had to make sure I get a lot of RJ Barrett, and I did, and I'm very happy. I'm also a happy man because we got to see the best Dick we have seen so far. Grady had 30 points in 36 minutes. He had 3 steals. But I want you to critically examine this performance. Now, Dick fouled out. Ejection. Got him out of there. What do we look at as discerning fantasy basketball managers? We get excited. We love a big dick performance. It's great. Except, will he shoot 65%? Of course not. Will he get 3 steals? You wish that you got that from your dick. So, 2 rebounds and 1 assist is definitely not cutting the mustard. And the other thing is, will he take 17 shots on a 27 usage? Again, no, he won't, because quickly he'll come back. So while it is great, we take advantage of the situation that Dick finds himself in at the moment, and that you find yourself in with Dick. But understand that this is just, same with Mobo, same with any of these guys, it's not a sustainable level of production for the shooting, for the minutes, for the shots, because quickly's played a half a game. As for Abaji, he was all right, 10-3 with 2 blocks. That's a nice 14-team league sort of guy. Well, Davion Mitchell, man, he's annoying. 11 points, but he had 11 assists, and while quickly's out, you're streaming for assists, you can stream for steals. That's probably where we're at, although I still believe that Jamal Shed is better, who had 9 assists in this one. Speaking of big dicks, how about Nick Richards, who last season, under Steve Clifford, started like 65 games and was just not good. And now Charles Lee's gone, my guy, you are good. Let's actually do something. 24 and 14, 33 minutes, 4 assists, 4 blocks. This man's a top 50 player so far. Now, Mark Williams is eventually going to return. And I don't think that Richards keeps that job, but I imagine they'd be pretty cautious with Williams when he's eventually back. So yeah, we just keep rolling with Richards. And I admit, I was just I saw this guy do this for 70 games. I saw him start and give me 11 and 7 with 1 block. And I go, okay, that's sensational, mate. I don't care. But I care a lot about this. This is a big turnaround. So yeah, make sure he's on a roster and then we figure it out later. Same with Trey Mann. He's just got to be rostered as well. All this can change very quickly. Quick flick of the wrist and things change because Miller can return and Mann gets minimized. That's not the right word. Minimized. But there are a lot of ways that he can, I don't need 27 minutes of Seth Curry. Nobody does. I probably also don't need to see 25 Cody Martin minutes, even though he scored 25 points here somehow. Also, these teams' defenses suck. So there are opportunities here for Mann, who had 27 with 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block, and he needs to be on a roster. We saw this coming in the preseason. We saw them really, really leaning into Trey Mann, and it's working out well. Not the best game from LaMelo, 19 points on 20 shots. In fact, that's downright terrible. But he did have 6 assists and 2 steals, just an off night, obviously. Speaking of off nights, Miles Bridges, 24 minutes, 7 points, 18% shooting. And I'll say maybe it's not an off night because he's been bad all season. I was very skeptical of Bridges. I had both Bridges as pretty strong busts this season. The McCollum one, it looks okay. Whatever, he's been pretty good. This one looks great. I feel like I nailed this, but this also doesn't make any sense. Yeah, he sucked. Yeah, they just signed him to a silly contract. Why is he so bad? Contract year, of course. Yeah, look, he's better than this. Don't drop him, but this is really terrible. It was a good game from Cody Martin. He also shot unbelievably well. So did Grant Williams, shooting 83%. We can ignore most of that, except they were both good, and that enabled Bridges not to play. And we also got decent minutes from Tijan Salan, who had 3 points in his 16 minutes, but I don't think we need to do much to get ourselves into the Tijan Salan business. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers right now, if you go and bet $5, you can get $150 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, it gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL. It's all in one place. In the middle of the game, you might be there smashing down some buffalo wings. Your fingers are full of sauce. You got a napkin on. You gotta go, I gotta quickly wipe it because I see something happening. I see a trend developing. I open up my app everywhere where normally I'd go to other apps to find all my stats and play-by-play and all that stuff, but no. I don't have to do that with FanDuel. It's all there. One place. Play-by-play. Stats. Where you place your live bets. It is all in the one place. So go to FanDuel.com right now to join and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let's go into another game that was filled with lineup intrigue. It's your banged up legends, the Atlanta Hawks. They go down to the Wizards 133-120. The Hawks, they brought David Roddy Piper into the starting lineup to replace the injured Dyson Daniels. Let's start with Roddy, who played 32 minutes. He had 17 and 4, and he had 2 steals. No surprise that Roddy's playing minutes and they're losing. That's a good line, though. I'm not going to sit here and trash David Roddy the entire time because he doesn't deserve that. That line is good. You can stream him in. He'd be a lower priority, and it's while all these guys are out. Daniels, Bogdanovic, Hunter, Krejci, Bufkin. Hunter could come back and just eliminate Roddy completely. But that was good. We have to add Zach Ricochet now. Have to. 35 minutes, 17 and 6, 1 steal, 2 blocks. Have to. There's too many guys out and no one can do anything else. Big game from Trae Young, 35, 4 and 15 with 2 steals. Big game from Jalen Johnson, 21 and 17. Unfortunately, Jalen still can't hit the free throws, which was a big concern of mine. But otherwise, it's okay now. It's all basically back in order. And Trae was not so good on the field goals, but they took a lot of shots. Gary Matthews, only the 2 threes from him, usually going to be good for 2 to 4 of those if he's playing a solid role, and he did. And then we got back to the center problem because we got annoyed again. Okongwu played 24 minutes for 2 points, yuck. And Capella had 12 and 5 in 24. Now, it's annoying they're splitting minutes after Okongwu's big opening night performance. It's annoying that Okongwu shot 20% and had no defensive stats. I am 100% holding Onyeka Okongwu, but this is not good at all. It's just not a good game. And we could be in for another season of getting dicked around. With the minutes, with his role, he'll get dicked around. It's a frustrating scenario. But again, he's not going to be a 20% shooter. That will improve. It won't be like that every night. This is just a very, very bad performance. You want to talk about the opposite, though, of a bad performance. What would that be? That would be a good performance because we're going to go to Washington. And we're going to talk about what happened over there as they get the victory. In this one, they made key changes. Kyle Kuzma was out of the lineup. So it wasn't Corey Kispert. It was Keyshawn George, who I thought it would be Kispert. And I mentioned that I thought George had an opportunity and I thought they should start George, and they did. Interesting. But they also made another change and didn't start Jonas Valanciunas. It was Bub Carrington who moved into the starting lineup. And we got lots of big performances. Now, it is important when looking at this Wizards game to understand that the Hawks have nobody available, so it is easier to put up numbers. But we'll start with Bilal, who played 35 minutes and he had 27 and 9, 3 steals and a block with 3 threes. Just throw out the scoring and the field goals because he shot 79%. It's not real. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. He's not that shooter. Nobody is. We know this part of it. But what I'm encouraged by is he was obviously a plus 23, so impactful. But another 35 minutes, he had 20 usage, and he rebounded. And he got steals, and he got blocks. He's got to be added. He has been awesome. After, the first game was iffy. He's been awesome. Speaking of awesome, what is happening with Jordan Poole? Because this one didn't even come on the back of good shooting. It was bad. 36%. He had 24, 3, and 9, and the steals are through the roof. Now, they will come down. But he is absolutely dominating at the moment, Jordan Poole. And, when you get a chance to have Jordan Poole as a first-round fantasy player, you got to take it at all points. Just wish it was a year ago. It would be nice if that was the case. What about Bubbles? Bub Carrington, 16, 6 and 6, 63% shooting. Obviously not going to stick, but that's a very good line from Bub. If I'm in a 14 team, he is worth a grab. Now, all of this will change whenever Kuzma returns. I think Kuzma's out for a few weeks, to be honest. But we also just don't know. But Carrington, that's good. Now, that's just not expectation, though. If he misses 2 extra shots and shoots like a regular rookie, you're talking about 12, 6 and 6, which is still fine, but not as exciting. And Valanciunas played 25 minutes. So he did get a slight bump without Kuzma, but the numbers are crazy. 22, 8, and 6. Of course, he didn't have any defensive numbers, but why is he getting assists now? He also shot at an incredible level, 80%, won't hold, but the value for him rises in this scenario too. Annoying that Alex Sarr's only playing 23 minutes. I think he's going to be a really good fantasy player. 11 and 5, 2 threes, 1 steal, 4 blocks. He needs to be rostered everywhere, despite some concerns. And then in deeper formats, 14s, Keyshawn George is one to look at. 11, 2 and 4 with 3 steals. Corey Kispert showed why I just don't like him as a fantasy player. 37 minutes, 16 points, 1 rebound. Shot poorly, didn't get to the line, didn't get defensive stats. He needed 37 minutes to get to whatever this was. He's fine as a points and threes guy, but he's just not the highest of high priority players because his overall game is not that good. And you've got other players like Carrington and Sarr and George and Bilal and guys like this who are much better fantasy producers than Kispert, who just needs so much to go his way to be able to put up value that would make some level of sense. We're going to go to the next game, which is this one. It is the Philadelphia 76ers losing. The Pistons do it. They get their win. 105 to Philadelphia, 95. Cade Cunningham continues to be great. He is a top 15 player. He had 22, 5, and 7 with a steal and a block. Still not shooting the best, so that has room to improve. for those of you who always want to hear about it, Cade Cunningham had 5 turnovers, so therefore he's probably a drop candidate. Let's talk about the passport legend, Jalen Duren. He fouled out in 11 minutes and he went scoreless. He didn't have a block. He had 6 rebounds. Much like with the Collins Sexton thing, this was a different one. I was scared of Duren because I was like, he is bad defensively, like really bad. And I don't believe that they're just going to make Isaiah Stewart be a 14-minute-a-night player. So I'm very worried about whatever the upside limit is for Duren. This is not all just that, but it's all this adding together. This doesn't mean that Stewart is taking his job. I believe, and I don't know if it would have changed much in this game, but I believe the plus-minus for Stewart versus Duren is outrageously in favor of Isaiah Stewart this season, like unbelievably in favor. Because Duren is dreadful at defense. And being worse at defense by that much than Isaiah Stewart is concerning. You're not dropping Duren, but yeah, there's no breakout coming, I don't think. As for Stewart, this is unbelievably good. 7 and 11, 1 steal, 3 blocks. Deeper leagues. Jaden Ivey scored well. He shot well. 23, 3 and 3. There's a little smoke and mirrors because I'm not expecting him to be a 50% plus shooter, which he seems to be in a lot of these games. And there's not a lot else coming with it, but he's turned into a dynamic scorer. Shout out to Monty Williams for no particular reason. And the Thick Hogsman started out poorly, but Tobias Harris, finally something happened. 18, 14, a block, 44%. The volume's there. The shots started to go in. I know everyone's ready to pounce on this guy. But everything we look at the indicators. Shots, minutes, peripherals, all there. They just didn't go in. And they will, eventually. And they did, sort of. So, yeah. You feel a little bit better if you're a Tobias Harris rostering legend. The Sixers, yeah, they obviously need Paul George and Joel Embiid back. We don't really know when they're coming back. Maxey carried hard, 32, 3, 7, 2 steals and 2 threes, and actually shot well. And then I'm not really sure what else to talk about here. I can talk about the fact that Jared McCain played 22 minutes. That's interesting, 12, 3 and 3. And I can talk about the fact that Kelly Oubre sucks. 13 and 7 with 2 threes and 36%. If Kelly Oubre can't do anything good when Paul George and Joel Embiid are out, this might be that definition of like, if you actually need to drop somebody to get Carrington, Bilal, Mobo, if you need to drop Kelly Oubre to get Dick, which maybe you need to do that, do it. Who cares? Oubre's not providing anything that's good. He's fine, but like it's not getting better when Embiid and George come back. He just continues to have the most annoying fantasy contributions, and it's just there staring in our face. Caleb Martin, he'd been pretty okay, but obviously this is yuck. 7 and 5 on 20%. We will have nothing to do with him when Embiid and Paul George are back. Nothing. He's a short-term stream guy. And honestly, I think you would have wanted more from Andre Drummond. 9 and 11 with 1 steal with no Embiid. And I'll tell you what this makes me feel about Drummond. Yes, I don't know when Embiid is coming back. I have no idea. I don't know what Embiid's going to be like the whole season. But I'll tell you what it makes me think is that stashing Drummond is actually not a good idea. Because these games are fine. He's the 85th ranked player in points leagues. In category leagues, he's like 108th, obviously better with punt, free throws, all that stuff. But you're going to hold on to the 200th ranked player when Embiid is back, waiting for something else to happen? No. It's not like he's rolling as a top 30 guy, which you go, well, maybe that pain is worth it because I've got a prime asset. He's not. Like, he's mid. He's not good at all at this point. So, yeah. Gershon Yabusele had 2 steals, 2 threes, almost a Richie Beno, but he had like an unofficial Richie, I guess, with 2 threes, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. But he's only a deeper league guy. While Eric Gordon couldn't sustain the one-game momentum, he had 3 points. But what is interesting is he played 16 minutes, Eric Gordon. Lowry was under 20, and Jared McCain played 22. Just keep a deep league watch on Jared McCain. Just. That is an interesting development to see those minutes move his way. We've still got a lot more to talk about in the show today, and I'm excited to get to it. We'll get into these, remaining 7 more games? Yeah, I think it's 7 more games. We've got to come through here, and the next game we take a look at is the Lakers. They got smacked by the Cavs. When we did the preseason over-unders, the Cavs were a team that I was like very, very high on. I thought their over-under was disrespectfully low. It didn't make sense to me. Two teams that I also thought had insanely high over-unders were the Jazz and the Spurs, and they are going to not come close to... I reckon you could almost combine the Jazz and the Spurs over-unders, and you won't even hit... the Jazz and the Spurs wins for the year, they won't even hit the Jazz over-under if you combine them. I feel pretty good about that. They look terrible, and yeah, it's those numbers were just insane when they happened, irrespective. The Cavs look unbelievable. Just as a quick aside, I did tweet this out, but I'll explain a little bit more in full. Do you remember that the Hornets hired Kenny Atkinson? He was hired. He was ready to come in. And then he was like, cool, I'm going to bring these guys in as my coaching staff. And Mitch Kupchak and Michael Jordan said, no, you're not. We've picked your assistants. They're all here. They're ready to go. You just use our assistants. Kenny Atkinson said, you guys are actually stupid. I'm going back to be an assistant coach. And they had to go and re-bring out of the crypt Steve Clifford, who clearly didn't want to be there, to coach for 2 years. They could have had Kenny Atkinson. He agreed. He was their coach. And they said, no, you don't actually get to choose your staff. And he went, peace, I'm gone. The Lakers get smashed by the Cavs, 134-110. So when we're going through here to take a look at these Lakers numbers, this is why they're low. Davis played 31 minutes, 22-13, 2 steals and a block. That's fine. Hachimura, who'd been getting by with really big numbers, he was back to being the Rui Hachimura that I've hated on relentlessly for years. 8 and 5 with a steal in 28 minutes. I am holding him because there's a track record of him being better. But if he's a 28-minute player, then he is not even close to a 12-team guy. LeBron, good after some down, or at least one down game, 26, 6 and 3. Well, Dalton Connect also had a really good game. I'm not budging on it. I'm not adding him. He had 18 empty points. That's cool, but it is a blowout game. Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, both terrible. Reeves had been flying. Russell hadn't been. Reeves had 7 points in 28 minutes, while Russell had 10, 3, and 5 in 24. Both shot horribly. Both were bad. Let's just ignore the majority of this game, except, hey, you want to celebrate that Bronny got his first bucket? You can do that if you so choose. The other side of this equation is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, like I said, they're just flying at the moment, and they get the easy win here over the Lakers. Evan Mobley only played 19 minutes, and you'll go, why? Well, he had 3 fouls in 7 minutes and then got his 4th foul at the beginning of the second half and still ended up with 25 and 5 on 75% shooting. So it wasn't his best game, but this is a top 20 player still. He's been ridiculously good. Darius Garland also got very early fouls. He didn't shoot well. He ended up with 10 assists and 2 steals in 22 minutes, though. And it was Jarrett Allen and Don Mitchell who got it going. 20 and 17 for Allen and 24, 3 and 7 for Mitchell. Big, big games. It was also nice to see something from Karis LeVert. Now, that is with no Max Strus and with Garland in foul trouble. LeVert is streamable. I don't think he's a must roster. There's too much up and down in terms of the minutes. We also got Isaac Okoro in some foul trouble here as well. But it was a good performance. And those of you in deeper leagues, Milk Jerome was back getting good minutes. 16 minutes for Milk. He had 14, 2 and 4 with a steal. We're not looking at that in 12s or anything along those lines, but his numbers actually have been awesome. So if you're in a 16-teamer, you do look at Milk. If you don't look at it the same way Tyrese Halliburton does, but you still look at it, and then you consider that maybe even pushing to 14s. Probably not, but maybe you push that high. We'll see. But he's been impressive after just not playing really at all last season. The New York Knicks, they take care of business against the Heat, 116-107. And what we got finally is big minutes and big usage from Karl-Anthony Towns. 39 minutes, 44 and 12 with 4 threes. Now, unfortunately, no defensive numbers. But he took 1 million shots, he shot 71%, and we're off and running. But that meant Jalen Brunson took another step backwards. Brunson is struggling. 22 points, another foot injury, 33% shooting, 9 assists, no defensive stats. In fact, I don't think he's had a single defensive stat all season. Brunson still had high usage, still had 30% usage, but he's not getting the 27 shots a game that he was taking last season, and we knew he wouldn't. But he's also shooting unbelievably poorly, and there are just plenty of indicators that he's going to be better. He is a buy low, clearly. Josh Hart had an ankle problem, but of course, Tom Thibodeau played in 42 minutes. He had 10 and 14 with 6 assists, and everything is coming up hard at the moment. And it was also a good Bridges game, 40 minutes for him. If they cop an injury, they are rooted. So you hope nothing goes wrong. 17, 3 and 6, 2 steals, 2 blocks for Bridges. Juice McBride, if Hart was out, we could have taken a stab at him. 10, 3 and 2 with 2 steals is fine. 38% shooting is not. Like, that is very borderline to me. But you just know it takes one thing. One guy out and McBride is in. So if you've got an ability to sort of hold, and because that's not a terrible line. It's okay. It's not terrible. You can have it. You don't have to, though. While the Jedi OG Anunoby is really doing nothing. 11 and 3, no assists, 2 steals. We knew there'd be some sort of a squish in terms of usage and minutes. Well, not minutes, usage. And there was. But 13 usage. He's still doing his thing. But the fantasy appeal is not there. And honestly, if you're in a points league, I don't know that you'd hold him. Honestly, I honestly don't know if you do. In 12s, I would. In 10s, it's honestly close. He's 156 so far, and he is not a points league type player. In categories, I do hold, but yeah, it is a different conversation when we're talking points leagues. Let's go into the next game. What is the next game? As I try and figure it out. Oh no, it's not. We don't need to go to the next game because I haven't even talked about the Miami side of things, where we just got some more confusion brought in terms of the rotation. Miami brings back the same starting lineup, and it was Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier who carried here. Hero had 34, 5, and 7, and Rozier had 16, 4, and 7, and both guys have been pretty good. Very good, in fact. But Bam Adebayo has not. Now, he was jacking up all threes in the preseason. A lot of people getting excited about that. He had 11 points. He had 4 assists. He didn't hit a 3. He didn't get a block. He's not a top 100 player this season. It's a big buy low, but he just looks terrible. He has had some foul trouble in this one as well. And it was back to being like a subpar Jimmy Butler game. Jimmy had a terrible game, 2 good games, and a subpar game. 15, 4, and 4 with 2 steals. And that pattern, not that it's going to always be like that, but that's what I talked about when we talked about, who was the player I literally forgot? Russell Westbrook yesterday. When I said, this is what superstars can do. Is that in their prime, they bang it out every night. And when they get older, they can still do it, but you get this nonsense sprinkled in. And that's a little bit of the reason the age, the games played, was why we had some fade on Jim. And it's not looking great. Jaime Jaquez, last game played like 33 minutes, and in this one he had 8 points in 27. So it's not that he can't play more. It's not that he can't play better. But when we look at these sort of players who are sort of fringy, when it could be 25 one game, it could be 31 the other game, it's really hard to consider them must-holds. You can, but it would depend who's there. Like, would you want to take a short-term flyer on a Mobo, on a Dick, on like a Trey Mann, on a Zach Ricochet, on a bloody Kyle Filipowski? Do you want to take the chances on those? I think you probably would. Because I think the guys like Jaquez sort of just sit around all the time. And that's the same with Little Chungus, Nikola Jovic, who minutes came back up and he had 10 and 6, which is like fine. But it doesn't need to be rostered everywhere. And there's obviously downside and there's obviously a limited ceiling. So it's just not one of the ones where you just got to sit on it and be excited about it continually. I just don't think that you need to do that. We are knocking out these games, which is great. The next one is the Orlando Magic against the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls win at 102-99. Franz Wagner again. I'm trying to think what a cold and flu brand is that is a universal brand. I don't really know one. Robitussin? Sudafed? Don't know. Sudafed. Sudafed legend. Let's call it pseudoephedrine. The pseudoephedrine legend, Franz Wagner, played 23 minutes, sat out the end of the game due to illness again. 7, 3, and 4 with a steal and a block, and that makes his season averages look worse. Yet he's still the 60th best player because he was so good earlier on. And then Paulo Banchero backed up his 50-pointer with 30 and 7 and 4 steals, and guess what? Another good field goal percentage game. Paulo kills all your percentages. He just kills you in all the percentage categories. Just always will do it forever and ever and ever, and always will kill your percentages every single time. Guess not. Not saying he's a 55% shooter. Don't get me wrong. When I push back on narratives, I'm not pushing back to say the opposite is true. I'm pushing back to say what you say is untrue. And those are two different things. So when I tell you that, no, Paulo was a bad field goal guy last season, that doesn't mean that I think he's going to be a good field goal guy. It doesn't mean that you can bank on him being a bad one. Free throws were still pretty rough, 5 of 7, but whatever. He's been great. So is Jalen Suggs. 2 bad games to begin the year, and then he just went into overdrive. 17, 6, and 5, 4 steals and 2 blocks, and we love that. KCP.
Get that garbage out of here.
No other comment. Well, Mr. Black played 23 minutes. Only scored 4 points on 20% shooting, but just adding little bits in. 3 blocks for Mr. Black, 1 steal. Why did I say it in my regular voice? 6 assists for Mr. Black. Big game in the peripherals. I don't think there is massive upside here in terms of what his role can be. Like, I don't think it's going to be, all right, we're shifting KCP out of there and Black and Suggs are the guys who are starting. I don't think that happens. But Karl-Anthony's out of the rotation. Mr. Black is getting 20-plus minutes a night. And when you're looking for an assists and a steals guy, which he is, stream him. Looks more comfortable to me as a 14-team league guy. But like top 150 player, barely 147th so far. Points leagues 138th. That's good enough to be considered in 12s as a streamer. And unbelievable improvement. I won't say I was wrong, but I definitely was not right that he's bad. Not true. He was bad last year. I was right on that, but I didn't think he would become good, and he has improved 200, 300%. He looks much, much better. He looks really good. Karl-Anthony out of the rotation, which is interesting. They signed him to the extension and then said, cool, you are just never playing again, which was last off-season, and they just cut all the minutes down, which is, again, is an interesting way to go about it. Speaking of interesting ways to go about it, the Chicago Bulls, we'll start with Zach LaVine, who looked like he had a shoulder issue, and he did. He said it was sore, he had an x-ray, and it was fine, but this was not a good game from him. He played through it, 36 minutes, x-rays were negative, 11 and 10 on 22%. He's been great. This was not. That's okay. Vooch, wow. 18 and 14, didn't hit his threes, but had 5 assists. He had a steal and a block. He got to the line 4 times. He has been so much better than last season. And again, I thought he was a bad player. I still think he's not very good. But he's definitely, in the first 5 games of this season, been well above what he was last season. Very clearly. We'll see how it goes the rest of the year, but he's been great. And we actually got Josh Giddey back over 30 minutes. 20 and 11, 5 assists. Love it. Kobe White, 21, 2 and 3. 50% shooting. Kobe has been fine. Some of my concerns with Kobe was just how many times does he get to play with the ball in his hands, and the assist numbers have been down for the most part, and it wasn't a great one there. Pat Williams had 10 and 7. That's doable, but heck, I don't think we need to care that much about it. And Dosunmu had 12, 4 and 4. I think he hit his first 4 or 5 shots maybe. There's just not enough to do for Dosunmu, and the big minutes that made him fantasy relevant last season need another injury or trade to happen. And again, it turns into that, can you afford to hold? In a lot of cases, you can't. Jalen Smith was ruled in before the game with an ankle sprain, and then as the game started, they went, nah, joke, and he's out with a different injury that we didn't tell you about at first. He's actually out with knee soreness, so that's why Sticks didn't play. Sticks, if he starts, will be a fantasy guy, and if he doesn't, we don't roster him outside of deeper formats. Let's go to the next game. The Brooklyn Nets beat Taylor Jenkins' terrible coaching 119-106. The Nets have been very, very plucky of late, and they do this one without Nick Claxton. Ben Simmons moved back into the starting lineup after 1 game off. He had 8, 5, and 3. There's just a limit on his minutes. There's a limit on his production. There's a limit on how much I can jack him.
Get that garbage out of here.
Speaking of not being jacked, though, Dennis Schroder, what is going on with this guy? This is the ultimate sell high that you'll never be able to pull off, but this man is a top 20 player so far. 33, 6 threes, 8 assists, 79% shooting. So you already know, you look at it and go, well, I know this is not holding. There's no way. No one is this player. And it's true. Nobody is. But he's doing it at the moment. Schroder is shooting 55 from the field this season on 55% from 3. So you already know that there is, this is not a good 3-point shooter. So we're talking 20 percentage point drop. 20 percentage point drop on 7.6 attempts. Get it down to 30. So you go from 4.2 threes to 2 threes a game. 6 points off his scoring brings him to 18, 2 and 8. The 8 assists are really good. The field goals drop. He's not this guy. He's very clearly not this guy. But he's playing incredibly well with a huge amount of minutes. And I just don't see that. I don't see that being something they run all season long. But again, he did it. And he was great. Cam Thomas finally had a really quite poor game overall, except he still got 10 of 11 from the line. 19, 2 and 2 from Thomas, and continues to be really, really good. And it was a second solid game from Cam Johnson. If Johnson is on your wire, I would go and add him. He had 14, 2 and 4, and it was a second really good game from Zaire Williams. He had 17 points, he had 1 rebound, he had 4 steals and a block. Unfortunately, we have to throw this game out because it's a revenge game, and that's what he was expected to do, and now he won't do it again until they play Memphis one more time. But in all seriousness, there was extra minutes available for Zaire. He played really well. He looked better than Jalen Wilson, looked better than Keon Johnson. Finding that role every night is maybe a little challenging, but we're absolutely watching this. And if I'm in a 14-teamer, I would be grabbing and then seeing where we go. As for Noah Clowney, it's just getting worse. 5 points, 14 minutes. He should have been jacked basically opening night. And we move on and we jack once more. Should I do it? Yeah.
Get that garbage out of here.
I saw something, I think it was on Reddit maybe, someone said they think that's me doing the Jack Armstrong impression. It's Jack Armstrong doing Jack Armstrong. It's not me. He did it for me. I asked him in a cameo, so I put it on my podcast. This is what I do. This is where I use it. He said, cool. And he gave me 4 different versions. It's not me doing it. It's him. Cool. Just to clear that up, there's always going to be misconceptions. That's okay. We can clear them up from time to time. What about the Grizzlies? What in the Monty Williams is Taylor Jenkins doing? This idea of like keeping everyone's minutes down, that big load to begin the year, it bit them right at the end of the deck. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson were in the game at the start of the fourth quarter and then came out for a 6-minute rest. And in that period, they went like 12 points behind and it was game over. Morant is pissed off. Like he is. Because I don't get what's happening. And now they've got a back-to-back. Is he even going to play in the next game? Will Jaren play? Who had 30 points with 3 steals in 28 minutes but no blocks and shot 83%. Something stinks here. What is happening with this team? And to compound the problem, both Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart got injured. Bane strained an oblique, 10 points in 17 minutes. Smart turned an ankle, 0 points in 6 minutes. As for Marcus Smart...
Get that garbage out of here.
Also, Santi Aldama... Like, what do? Maybe you hold him because it's the back-to-back, but Santi Aldama, like, I won't say it's highlight reel bias because I haven't really seen many highlights of him, but I hear things and I listen to many different media sources about the NBA, and like, oh man, Santi's found a new like level. He's doing this. He's like, you're cool, and then no one talks about this bullshit. 2 and 3 in 22 minutes. This is what Santi does, unfortunately. He has a good game. He has a bad one. For all of the hoopla, like he's been fine, but he's not a top 80 player. And most of those games came without Jaren. I don't see Aldama being really remotely close to a 12-team league player this season. And then Jay Huff, who'd been their best center, played 10 minutes for 4 points. So what? Why? What are we doing here? What's the purpose of this? Not to say that he played well here, but finally Brandon Clark played well, 13 and 3 with 2 steals. But we are getting real big, like everyone is too good. Or there's too many good players, not enough great players. Even though everyone is hurt. And this is going to get worse, I fear. Scott Pippen. Someone said it's got to be Pippen time now that Smart and Bane were out. And then my response to that was, when the starting point guard went down, he didn't even start. But now they're going to miss their starting shooting guard, likely, or their starting small forward. So does Pippen and Morant play together? I don't think so. But I also don't know. This was a bad game from Pippen. 5 points, 20 minutes. Jake LaRavia had 11% shooting, 3, 6, and 5. I think LaRavia will start, honestly, if Bane and Smart miss. I think you might get actually like LaRavia or it could be Aldama. You could get Wells. Honestly, you know what? I'll take it back. I've got no idea. There's a million different guys who could jump into this lineup. It's a mess. The rotation's a mess. The decision-making is a mess. And the injury report is once again a mess. Kennard, Williams, Gigi Jackson, Cam Spencer, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, all out. I'm assuming Smart and Bane are out. So look, you can hold Aldama and see what happens. You hold Pippen, see where it goes. I don't know that you need to hold Zach Edey because, I don't think he is cut out to be an NBA starter. But this was a better game, but still just 18 minutes. It's a mess. And I think it's going to get worse when players return, but also now you're going to have 2 other guys out and you're going to have no one who's super good to replace them. So it will be a lot of cycling. It'll be a LaRavia, a Conchar, a Pippen, a Wells, a bloody Aldama. You won't even get old mate Yuki Karamura in there. Yeah, that's a real player, the 5'2" Japanese legend. He's not 5'2", but might as well be. Taylor Jenkins is someone who I have criticized for a long time. Not continually, but he made incredibly ridiculous decisions regarding minutes for someone like D'Anthony Melton for years. And There were other ones. I can't remember the other ones. But there was a lot of stuff where I went, what is this guy doing? And this is almost peak what are you doing season for Taylor Jenkins. Let's do the next one. The San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Easy win for the Thunder, 105-93. And let's address the big problem. We don't precisely know what the issue is here, but I would say it is probably a good time now to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside regarding Victor Wembanyama and whatever the hell is going on here. 27 minutes, he had a locker room trip. 3 blocks, fine. 8 rebounds, whatever. He took 5 shots. What's going on here? 5 shots. Now, at the moment, I know that if you took Wemby at number 1, which was a relatively consensus opinion, I was like 60-40 Wemby over Jokic. Admittedly, I know that. Interestingly, my Durant metric had Wemby at 6. That's something for me to track. But yeah, I no problem taking him at 1 or 2. And at the moment, it looks terrible. But let me give you a couple of pieces of advice. Panicking doesn't do anything. It doesn't change a single thing about what Wembanyama does. In fact, all it does is maybe goad you into terrible decisions. So, is it time to panic? No, because it doesn't do anything. Is this incredibly weird? Yes. I think it's going to adjust. Remember, Wemby struggled a little bit out of the gate last season. I'm not saying he will struggle. I'm not saying that it'll all change and there's different circumstances, all that stuff. 5 shots is a ridiculously low number. And I don't think it's a real thing. But we have to have like a level of... intrigue is not the right word, but focus. We have to focus on it because it is bad without any question. And if you took him at 1, and I did in one league, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl Points League, it looks terrible. Obviously, it looks terrible. But again, think to yourself, go back in time and go, yeah, I could have seen this coming. He's definitely going to be games where he takes 5 shots. Of course. It's easy to see. No one could have seen this. Because we saw him cook for months. We saw him be the number 1 fantasy player for a long stretch of time. So, don't beat yourself up. Beat me up if you want. Terrible guy. Yeah, fuck, why did you take Wemby, mate? Idiot. Unsubscribe. Cool, do that. That's okay. Make sure you do it as a comment on the video. Boost the algo. But, like, again, it's all about realistic probabilities and ideas of how this stuff works. And there's not a realistic scenario you could have cooked up in your head that this is what would happen. And we think it'll fix. Because this is not a realistic thing to hold. Chris Paul was actually good though, 15, 5, and 9, so we just keep rostering him. And is this why? Is it because they've got the pencil Harrison Barnes? Barnesy? You know what I notice? As you listen to classic rock bands, let's use classic rock bands as a non-pejorative in this sense, is that you hear them when they're 22 and 23 and they're screaming and they're hitting all the notes and everything's going well. Then you see them as they tour until they get to the age of 50 and you just can't do it, can you? You just can't get the voice to the right spot. It's been worn down. The vocal cords have loosened up, or maybe they've tightened. I don't know how vocal cords work. And they just can't hit the notes. That's how I feel at the moment. I can't actually rip the Barnesy the way I used to. There's something holding back in my voice. And if I do it, I feel like it's going to sound really ugly. Let's try again. The pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. Yeah, it was all right. Anyway, Barnes scored 18 points on 58% shooting, and I don't care. I can stream him, but I just don't care otherwise. Well, Sohan, the numbers dropped in terms of shooting, but honestly, it's still good. 17, 9, and 4 with a steal. We take that every day of the week. What we don't take is 3 points from Julian Bubbles Champagne. Maybe he's not Bubbles. Maybe we go Bub Carrington is Bubbles, and this guy is Bubbly. Buble. It's pronounced Buble. 3 points for Buble in his 20 minutes. Yeah, how about no?
Get that garbage out of here!
Steph Castle went scoreless in 20 minutes.
Get that garbage out of here!
And Malaka Branham had 15 points in 20 minutes. We're not rostering him. It was a solid game from the horse Keldon Johnson, but the only reason you would have Johnson or Champagne on your roster is to stream in on a low volume day tomorrow. Obviously, positive from Sohan, stinker from Wemby, good stuff from Chris Paul, and then we move across to the other side where this team continues to just be an absolute wrecking ball at every opportunity. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they made another change to the starting lineup, and for another time, it wasn't Alex Caruso. Let's start with Caruso, who went scoreless for the second consecutive game in 22 minutes, but had 4 steals. And this is the perfect thing, because you know that a traditional 9-cat ranking thing will come out and show, well, Caruso's got these big steal numbers, and that's why you roster him, and you're punting points, and blah, 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 blah. And that is true. But always remember, this age-old wisdom that I heard about a week ago, is that when you pick a player like this, with very defined skills, you don't pick and choose what you get. You get everything. And one of the flaws of a 9-cat ranking Z-score system is that if a number is so much of an outlier in a flawed sample size that it makes everything else look good, when in fact it isn't. And that was one of the main reasons I went on to develop Durant. And my first thing was developing -1. My second thing was doing the weightings on stuff. And the third is Durant, to really try and get rankings to make sense. Is that I would see a player who would average 8, 4, and 2, but like 2.1 steals, and they'd be, 70th best player. And then 0.9 turnovers. Like, okay. And then they're actually useless for you. And I'm getting a bit of those vibes from Caruso here, to be honest. Last season, he played like 29 minutes a night. He was a very clear must-roster player, and I thought he'd come in being as good as he is and play 27 a night, but he's not. So here's what we do. Well, that's not true, because I am never going to be here, unless it's about rostering Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I'm never going to be here telling you what to do. I'm going to be giving you opinions and thoughts and jacks. But here's what I think is a good way to look at this with Caruso. If you have him in a 10-team points league, you have no business holding. If you have Alex Caruso in a 12-team points league, you have no business holding.
Get that garbage out of here.
If you have Alex Caruso in a 14-team points league, well, I don't think you've got any business holding.
Get that garbage out of here.
And if you have Alex Caruso in a 10-team category league, I actually think, as a general rule, you don't have any business holding.
Get that garbage out of here.
Before you jump down my throat, well, actually, I'm punting points and my steals and blocks are so... Before you do that, yeah, I know that. And I cannot give advice for every... Do you know how many punt builds there are? I don't, and I'm going to go figure it out because I want to have that number in my head to reference it. Let's go do it. In the the realms of here's what I prepared earlier, from what I can tell, if we say max out at 3 category punts, there are 92 different punt strategies that you can employ. If we do just 3-cat punts. What about if I include 4-cat punts? Because that'll tell you how many different structures and combinations of punting builds you can have, which makes it 9 impossible to give 100% of all the different ways to go. There's another, so that would make it 162 different punting strategies that you can run if you go to a 4-cat punt system. So when we talk about Caruso and I say like in a 10, like he might be a drop, it might fit what you need absolutely perfectly. That's cool. But there's a lot of other ones where it doesn't. And the same goes for a 12. So just if he's not getting 28, it is hard to feel super good about it. Speaking of super good though, what's going on with Lou Dort? 20 points, 6 threes, 2 blocks. He's not rostered like anywhere. And I am not a Lou Dort guy. But at the moment, like he's got way more appeal than the roster percentage suggests. Chet continues to be good. Not his best game, but who cares? 19, 5 and 2, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and Shea, unsurprisingly, couldn't keep doing what he was doing. 18, 4 and 5, 1 steal, 0 blocks, and shot poorly. This is not to say that Shea is bad, obviously, but he drops down to be the 5th best player so far. Because he was running at a number which had 0 chance of holding, which is still fine. He's still awesome. The Bronco had 4 steals in this one, but otherwise, like 12 and 7, 39%, 8 assists. Like, it's fine, but he's been, I would say, somewhat shaky, Jalen Williams, so far this season. And Cason Wallace started. He was the starting change. He moved in ahead of Aaron Wiggins. He had another 2 steals. He's a great source of steals, actually, Cason Wallace. And I'll tell you who's actually playing a lot, unbelievably, AJ Mitchell. 2-way guy, point guard. He had 12 points in 22 minutes with 2 steals. And we talked a lot about this team in the preseason, saying they bring Caruso when that's gone, but like, who are their actual ball handlers? Who's their backup point guard? Maybe it's this guy. Maybe it's AJ Mitchell. So deeper leagues just want to pay a little bit of attention there. Dylan Jones doesn't play. He's not in the rotation. And Isaiah Joe hit 2 threes. I think that's all we need to cover off with that one. Let's talk about this sad game now. The Golden State Warriors against the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans just in complete disarray at the moment. Multiple injuries, multiple changes to the starting lineup. Jordan Hawkins was dealing with a back problem, but he started with Herb Jones out. And then Jose Alvarado, who'd been getting 13 minutes a night, he had to start because CJ McCollum was out. And that was joining Trey Murphy and DeJounte Murray on the sidelines. And then Daniel Tice got hurt during the game. Just like, it's just disastrous at the moment. It's not like the Warriors weren't beat up as well, because we know that they've got 3 main guys out also. But that's just really bad for the Pelicans. 104-89. Their style of game is weird. I don't know if Willie Green's doing a good job coaching. In fact, I know that he's not. And they're just running out of bodies. While CJ is out, you've got to have Jose Alvarado, because there is no other point guard. Alvarado played 35 minutes and he had 16 points with 4 threes, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. You've got to have him. Brandon Ingram was like he was playing in the playoffs, honestly. 14, 5, and 6 with no defensive stats. That's completely mid. I faded him hard. And this should be a good opportunity for him to put up good numbers. But yeah, this wasn't good. On the flip side, I was in on Zion. And I don't know what this is that we're getting. Now, on the positive side, he played 33 minutes. But 3 games out of 4, he has shot under 30% from the field. This is a man who should be running at 60%. I can only presume that illness that he had was COVID, and it knocked him around completely. What else could it be? What else happened? Because this is ridiculous. Now last season he started slowly as well, then cooked the second half. I'm hoping that comes back soon, but this is a terrible start. Can't do much about it, but yeah, it sucks. After a really stinking game yesterday, was it? Yeah, Jordan Hawkins, 39 minutes, 23 points. Now again, he doesn't do anything else. 4 threes, nothing else. He took 21 shots, shot 43%, played 39 minutes. There is zero chance in the entirety of the world of the whatever universe you want to look at. He's never playing 39 a night as a regular thing, and he is not taking 21 shots. It's not happening, and he does nothing else at all. This is exactly the same thing that happened with Jordan Hawkins to begin last season. About a 4 or 5 game run where everyone was out, he did a million things, and then he got 0 minutes. I'm not saying he's going to get 0 minutes. I think he'll be in the rotation. But this is ride it, and then we're off. Yves Missi started the second half with Daniel Tice out. He started and ended up playing 12 minutes total. Didn't have foul trouble. He just sucked. 0 points, missed all 5 of his shots, no defensive numbers. Now, he had been really solid. He had been. So solid, though, that he's now the 178th ranked player in category leagues and 144th in points leagues. With the way that even me was talking about him, you'd think he was just cooking at a top 80 level. He's not. I hate the fit of Missi and Zion. And is the Zion issue Missi related? I don't think so. But I hate the fit. I also think that when players return, Missi will not get 23 minutes a night. I don't think that he will. But again, at the moment, the production's been good enough, but it's not for everybody. So when you roster an Yves Missi, because you like the blocks, and he's got good field goals, you got to remember you get no threes or assists or steals and bad free throws and low points. And that all counts. It all counts. So I think he's good to add. I think he's good to roster, but I don't think we need to get super excited or super over our skis. And this is obviously a terrible game. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl played 23 minutes. He had 9 and 5. Like, cool, good for you. And Javonte Green, Alex Caruso had 3 steals, 2 blocks. He had 5 points. He's a pretty good defender. We're only looking at him in deeper formats, though, but they just had to play him because there's nobody else. We also got 10 BJ Boston minutes. He scored 1 point, and that's probably the last time I'll reference BJ Boston on this show. Maybe not. We'll see. The other side of the equation was the Golden State Warriors, and they made the change. Hall Pass legend Lindy Waters III moved into the starting lineup. Buddy Hield went to the bench. But I'm more of a Barry Sanders Jr. guy anyway. Lindy Waters had 3 points in 30 minutes. He had a steal on a block. He shot 5 times, and we don't do absolutely anything with this at all. We don't. They were still without Wiggins. They were still without Curry. They were still without Melton. And what we saw was just no Waters replacing Hield. That was the change. Buddy was still good. 21 points, steal, block, 19 shots. But again, will Buddy Hield, when Curry and Wiggins and Melton or Melton return, will Hield play 29 minutes? Will he take 19 shots? Your answer is an immediate no. He won't. He has been awesome this season, Buddy Hield. If I could get any top 80 player in a trade, without question, I would do it immediately. Well, in a competitive league, Josh, you're going to get laughed out of the room, and that person will never talk to you again. They'll never get a trade done, and that's just incredibly terrible advice. I just don't think this is happening for Bud, right? There are too many, and I don't know when these players are returning, so there's always, any trade you do, there is a risk. There's always a risk that the buy low, sell high, whatever you're trying to do, it farts in your face. There's always a possibility of that, right? But it's not quite worst case. It's close, but it's almost worst case in terms of guys out. And Hield has been very good, but there's a lot that just can't continue to happen. A lot of people wanted Draymond on watch. And I'm not saying that he's not, but 14, 4, and 6, 1 steal, 5 blocks absolutely is exciting. It's very, very good. It is a very good line. And I think in category leagues, you have to hold. Trace Jackson-Davis made it annoying. He had 15 and 9 with a block, which is awesome. Last game, he did nothing. So what do we do here? It's one of those ones where the upside is capped by the minutes. The downside is very low. There's no consistency, so it's like a stream and maybe. Well, everyone's favorite ad, Kevon Looney, he had 2 points in 9 minutes. We're at the bucket. John Kuminga, the depositor. He had 16 points in 26 minutes with 4 rebounds on 50% shooting. And you'd look at that and go, that's not bad. But I don't want not bad. From Kuminga, when Curry, Wiggins, and Melton are out, he needs to blow me away. I don't need mid bullshit like this. And like Buddy Hield, he is, I believe, going to be a drop. This is your chance, my guy. Brandon Podziemski, it's his chance. He's taking it. Kuminga's doing this nonsense. As for Pods, yes, we roster him, but we also saw him being a 23-minute-a-night player on a healthy squad. 13, 9, and 8. They got no one else to handle the ball. He still can't shoot, 33%. We roster him now. And then when guys come back and they filter back and we see how things change, then we make those decisions. But at the moment, we're getting really good stuff out of him. Another 1 minute for my man, the Vulture, Reese Beekman, as well. The final game of the night, the Portland Trailblazers get the big comeback win over the LA Clippers. Their lineup stays the same. The final score here is 106-105 at the end. I said their lineup was the same as it was in their other games. They haven't changed the starters at all. So let's take a look at what Portland was able to do. Our first thing is going to be what happened with Jeremy Grant, defensive mastermind. Grant had 8 points on 21% shooting with 3 rebounds, no steals, and no block. Ooh, no. Ooh. So yeah, we're back to the same nonsense, showing again that those 2 games were flukes, and that's not who Jeremy Grant is, so we're all good, yeah. It was a good game from Denny Avdia, 13 and 10 with 2 blocks. Still can't shoot well, but that's encouraging. What's not encouraging is the fact that he only plays 29 minutes, and that's without Shaedon Sharpe. We still hold him, but it is not looking great at the moment. The Snowman had 15 and 12 with a 1-1, DeAndre Ayton just chugging along. Nothing spectacular at all, but just chugging along. While Don Clingan can't play enough. He hit a 3, but he played 11 minutes. 7 and 6, steal and a block. That's not enough. Again, if you have stashability and you're waiting for some sort of trade that you think is inevitable, go for it. I also said on the show the other day that I think there is very little chance that Clingan ever has as good a career as DeAndre Ayton. Someone disagreed with that, and that's okay. I just don't see the upside in a guy like Clingan to ever be as good as what Ayton is. And Ayton's not awesome, but we clown on Ayton a lot. If Donovan Clingan was the number 1 overall pick, I promise you we'd clown on him more. Scoot, yuck. 24 minutes is probably the most annoying part, even though he shot 63%. But 14, 3, and 6 with a steal. It's passable. I am still holding, but I want more minutes. While Simons had 25, 2, and 6, and we had 40 Tumani Kamara minutes. Now, some of this is to do with the way, the flow of the game and the comeback and all that sort of stuff. But it is frustrating. Kamara is a streamer. The 3 steals are nice. Scoot is a 12-team guy, I believe. Not much else going on in this game, I don't think. Simons had his 25 and no steals or blocks, as you're well aware. That is his burden and cross to bear. The Clippers also came in with the same lineup that they've been rolling out there, and Jim Harden was basically the same guy. 32 minutes for him, 19, 5, and 10, with 3 steals on bad shooting, which has been a real problem, but he has been around that first-round mark. And Storm and Norman Powell did a lot, 30 points with 5 threes. This is what he does. Now, it is going to be very hard if Kawhi returns, because he's not going to take 22 shots, but we just absolutely roll with this. And honestly, with Derek Jones Jr., the minutes that he's getting, the production that he's having, He's at least a 14-team league guy, and he might be a 12. 9 and 8, steal and a block. I don't mind a 12-team out of Jonesy. Well, Zubac sort of cooled off here. Well, didn't sort of cool off. Had just a horrible efficiency night. 6 points on 29%, but 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, still gets it done. Kevin Porter Jr.
Get that garbage out of here.
Chris Dunn.
Get that garbage out of here.
Terrence Mann.
Get that garbage out of here.
Kai Jones.
Get that garbage out of here.
Dunn is fine as a steal streamer. Like, I just want to do that because I just wanted to run Jacks off. Dunn is fine as a steal streamer, but you don't roster Jones, you don't roster Mann, you don't roster Porter outside of very, very deep formats. And all of them had a little bit of flirting with, like, oh, maybe we do this, maybe we do that. Always the problem there with Dunn is that you're going to have games like this, you're going to have really good ones, and the level of consistency is just not going to always be there. Should we do the monstrous line of the night? We probably should. It was actually a little bit tighter, that's what she said, this one, than we have had for some of the other monstruses, but in the end, it goes to Karl-Anthony Towns, and for some reason, he's the only player in the NBA database who does not have a headshot. Because I know he was traded like the day before Media Day, and the Knicks just said, oh, you weren't here, we're never doing it, bad luck. The Wolves took the photos of Randall and DiVincenzo, but Towns, no photo. Sorry. 44 points, 12 rebounds, huge game from Karl-Anthony Towns to get the monstrous line of the night. The waiver wire line of the night. The best performance from an under-rostered player for Wednesday, we're going to Benedict Mathurin. He, of the 5 points the game before, had 30 and 11. He had 4 assists, and now we are even more confused as to what Rick Carlisle's ideas are here. 14 teamers, you can have a look. You can stream in 12s. I'm not going to tell you off about it. I'm never going to tell you off about anything unless you want to pay me on Cameo, and then I would definitely tell you off and tell you how bad and naughty you've been. But you can try it. I just would have no faith in what he does because literally I look back 2 halves and I see it. Well, I don't see it because he didn't play because he was bad. But it was a good game. Good game nonetheless. Your young gun of the night. The best first or second year player. This one is obvious. If you can't get it right, if you can't guess it, I'm not sure what you're doing here. It's Bilal Coulibaly, who had 27 and 9. He had 3 steals, and he is absolutely on fire at the moment. I love to see it. He is ahead of schedule. I do think there's going to be some shooting regression, absolutely, but I love the minutes and I love the usage and I love what we're getting. The dud of the night is the best. No, it isn't, Josh. It's actually the opposite of that. It is the worst performer. And we know who it is. It's a man who apparently would forget his dick if it wasn't screwed on. It's passport legend Jalen Duren. 0 points, 6 rebounds. He snuck an assist in there. He fouled out in 11 minutes, and he is struggling. Don't drop him. But yeah, at the moment, it's bad. Let's wrap this bad boy up with a top 6. Who are the top 6 players across the fantasy basketball cinematic universe? Today was Karl-Anthony Towns at number 1, as we've already detailed. Number 2 was Trae Young, then Dennis Schroder, Tyler Hero, BDNR, Nick Richards, and then Bilal Coulibaly. Your waiver wire top 6 players for the day. We start with Benedict Mathurin. Second was Lou Dort, just continues to be under-rostered. Isaiah Stewart was awesome in this one, Alf, but yeah, that's just a deeper league thing. Grant Williams and Cody Martin were also popping for Charlotte against the B-League, not a real thing, against the G-League Hawks, and Zaire Williams for the second game in a row. Want to see him do it when Claxton and Simmons both play, but encouraging stuff nonetheless. Let's now look at the top 6 Yahoo Points League performers. The top Yahoo Points League guy was Trae Young, followed by Jason Tatum, Nick Richards, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Tyler Hero. And to round it out, the top 6 ESPN Points League guys. Trae Young, Towns, Hero, Richards, Schroeder, and Bilal Coulibaly. And that is an absolute monster of a show. It is 11 games in the books. It is injuries. It is replacements. It is overreactions. It's all of that stuff. Thumb it, bang it, comment it. We are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.